Hey guys, this is Scott, Vegas Horse Pools. I'm here with my buddy Gary. Gary, how you doing tonight?
Doing okay, doing okay. We got our CFP brackets in. We're feeling
Yep,
okay. So it got some interesting games, and all the bowl matchups are set. So I am ready to rock and roll.
that's good. We had some amazing games this weekend. You know, I'm a big fan of Georgia. I said that to you probably the first day I ever met you.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
I love Georgia. Georgia played a whale of a ball game, and you know what? They don't even care if they got their starting quarterback. They're just going to win, which I thought was great. What did you think of
that's
that ball game?
they definitely. I mean, obviously the offense looked a lot better when the backup came in. Uh,
Yeah,
you can never really tell about those. How much did he surprise the Texas defense? Obviously, they started to kind of figure things out. Curious what it's going to look like if Beck is not playing. He's undergoing an MRI, but yeah, I mean, Georgia did what they normally do, and they play good defense against a good team. When it's time for them to actually show up for a game, that's what they do. So
yep,
yeah,
and
it
they
was
did it.
about more of the same. That's a very frustrating football team.
And how about that Oregon? Oregon looked amazing
Oh,
also. I thought that was a ball game, one of the best ball games I've seen all year. So I was very, very proud of the Big Ten, even though they had the wrong team in the championship game. Nebraska was at home in Lincoln instead of playing in it. But I thought Penn State played pretty well. What did you think of that ball game?
I was I was shocked at the Penn State offense, but maybe I shouldn't have been because you and I had talked about this. Andy Kotelnicki, that's what he was brought here to do. And I expected more from the offense against Ohio State, but we ended up getting it in this game. I mean, how often do
Yeah,
you run for 300 yards and lose a game, right?
yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
it's very difficult to do. But Oregon, showed up a lot of speed, and that indoor track was suited very much for them. Like the rest of the playoff is going to be for them, really, other than their game in the Rose Bowl, which is going to be against Ohio State or Tennessee. That's two good defenses. We'll see exactly what comes out of that. Yeah, this is very interesting. The Big Ten title game. I don't know the last time that we had 80 plus points in a Big Ten title game, but yeah, it's certainly a different world now, isn't it?
It definitely is. It definitely is. I had a great weekend with watching all the games. Probably the one I didn't get to see was the Clemson game. I know you watch on multiple screens.
Oh yeah.
What did you think of the Clemson SMU and the controversy that they caused with Alabama?
I thought that Clemson had a chance to put them away, and Clemson played not to lose for the duration of that second half. It was, you could very much tell that they were not being aggressive. They were trying to get to the end of the game. And of course, the miraculous, kick return towards the end of the play or towards the end of the game, leading to the 50 plus yard field goal. I mean, it was just, it was an awful spot for Alabama to be in. But if you're SMU, if you were going to lose the game, that was like the perfect way to lose
Yeah,
the game. Uh,
yeah.
I don't have to dive into exactly what my thoughts are on the committee and whatnot, but you know, it's I do think I, I I think that it was the perfect game to encapsulate a very weird college football season.
Yeah, weird is an understatement. So let's go ahead and pull up the games we have. Our first game, Indiana playing Notre Dame. This game I cannot wait to see. What do you, and if you take a look here, I've done something this week that I don't normally do on our show. Is I have the Circa openers number here. If you guys are Spank Odds users, one of the tricks you can do, and I'll pull it up for you here so you can see. There's a button down here that says Show Bookie Openers. If you click that, when you scroll to the very bottom, you can pick whatever book you want and get their opening lines. I did that for one very specific reason. There was some talk on the Twitter today. I believe Spanky was involved in it in the Texas game. They were talking about this 8.5 was only up for 46 seconds. But let's go ahead and stay in the state of Indiana here, Gary. What do your numbers look like on this one? Because this is going to be a great football game.
So I have actually got I've got Notre Dame favored by 4.9 points. Now Indiana, based on the last 4 weeks of stats, I've actually got them favored by almost 10 points. But
Wow.
a lot of that you have to try and weight it correctly. right? Because it's obvious that Indiana played absolutely nobody, but also Notre Dame kind of played nobody. So the stats should be pretty equal here. It, it's in-state teams. The last time that these two teams played, and they are not that far from each other, but the last time that these two played was, I believe, 1990, and that was the last time that that anybody other than uh, NBC broadcast a game from inside of South Bend. Right, so it's a little bit of history repeating itself. I, my total is higher than this. I've got 51.5 on the total. Or sorry, the total is 51.5. I've got it 55. So, I'm very curious. Like these are the number 2 and number 4 teams in predicted points added margin for me. Notre Dame's defense, I've got number 1, and their offense, I've got number 19. Indiana, I've got their offense number 11. I got their defense number 14. So, the fact that this is 7.5 kind of makes sense when you start looking at team talent composite. Notre Dame, I've got number 10 there. Indiana's number 57. But there's, some intangibles here and there that would certainly lean towards Indiana. They're number 11 in special teams efficiency, number 16 in penalties per game. Both of those are significantly better than what Notre Dame is. So there's some fundamental things that lean Indiana's way. Man, that talent differential is so big with Notre Dame. I don't even know what to think about this one. Part of me wants to just take Notre Dame, but I think this one might be pretty close because I think Indiana's going to be fired up. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder for where they were ranked.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? I'm a little torn on it.
Well, I think Notre Dame being at home is a huge, huge advantage. I think this game is going to be really close. And if you're going to give me over a touchdown, I want Indiana all day here. But like I say, I think Notre Dame's going to win this, but I would not expect them to cover 7.5 points. That hook is huge at 7 in this ball game, in my opinion. So
yeah, my numbers certainly lean that direction.
Yeah, but you have to remember, I'm very, very pro Big Ten, and I don't like Notre Dame because they won't join our conference. So hopefully that's not coloring my words too much. But yeah, I have to play Indiana in this spot.
It does make sense. It does make sense. Over a touchdown in a playoff game, even a game that's at home. Yeah, you're probably right. And the numbers, at least for me, do point that direction. So yeah, probably lean Indiana so far.
Perfect. Then we're perfectly in sync here. Let's take a look at the second team here on our list. Looks like we're going to do all Big Ten, it looks like today. SMU taking on the road to play Penn State. The early game on the 21st. Looks like that game opened at 8.5, and it looks like it dropped down to 8, except at Pinnacle went up to 9. Looks like the juice is shaded a little bit. What do your numbers show on this one?
I've got Penn State favored by 7 exactly. Based on the last 4 weeks of stats, I've got Penn State by 8 points. So right in line with the number. Again, you look at strength of schedule, you look at power rating. It's everything just kind of points Penn State's direction. You start diving into raw numbers, and SMU certainly looks better. But against that strength of schedule, you got to weight it a little bit, right? SMU, the 2 best teams that they have played, they have not performed well against. Certainly not good when you're going to Happy Valley from Dallas. And I know that Dallas does get cold, but I'm curious if we're going to see some snow, if we're going to see something very interesting up there that SMU is not used to. So I look at this and I get the feeling that I'm going to be leaning Penn State's direction. SMU, their team talent composite is number 25. Like Penn State's number 11. So there's a gap there, but it's not huge. I think I'm going to lean Penn State, even though my number is just right in line with the current spread. Curious your direction. Which way are you going?
Well, actually, I used to live near SMU in Dallas. Lived there for about 3 or 4 years, and Dallas has never seen a winner like they're going to see in Pennsylvania, ever. There is no comparison whatsoever. SMU has not really performed very well against anybody of note. Penn State has played probably 2 of the better teams in the country, given Ohio State and Oregon. I know they didn't win either ball game, but that's much better competition than SMU has ever seen. I think Penn State wins this game easily. You know how much I hated the hook in that last game? I don't care about the hook in this game. I'm Penn State all the way.
Yeah, anything that's under double digits, I kind of feel good about Penn State on.
Yeah.
I really think that they're just going to outclass SMU.
I 100% agree. And I agree with you even on the 10. 10.5 would scare me. 10
Yeah, at that point,
or under?
you might start looking the other direction. But
Yeah.
even
I 100%
then,
agree.
yeah, even then, I still think, and I know that SMU's only lost 2 games by 3 points each or whatever it was. But again, that's 2 teams. There was a neutral site game against Clemson last night or whatever night,
Right.
Saturday night. And there was a home game against BYU when BYU was still trying to figure itself out. And they lost both of them by 3 points. Really probably should have lost by more to Clemson if we're being honest with ourselves. But yeah, I feel pretty good about Penn State here.
Well, this is going to be a really boring show if we agree on everything. Let's go ahead and talk about Texas. Texas is the reason I have the circa opening lines here. If you'll see, circa opened this game at only an 8.5 on the Texas side, but this is the key to having a global market in sports betting. You really can't have an opinion. Circa had an opinion. 46 seconds later, they said that opinion doesn't mean anything because the money's flowing in on the other side. So the line looks like it's a pretty solid 11. Looks like Pinnacle's even out in front of that as a 12.
Yeah, 12. Yeah, 12 even.
I think if Texas didn't have Georgia on the schedule, I think they'd never lose a game. The problem is they keep drawing Georgia. What do your numbers show on this game?
Well, see, here's the problem with Texas, though, is outside of Georgia, who have they played, right? And I understand going to Texas A&M is rough, but that's kind of the theme with this field is nobody has good wins. Penn State doesn't really have any good wins. They got good losses.
Yeah.
Texas got 2 great losses to Georgia. But aside from that, nobody has really beat anybody. And so my number on this agrees with the line movement. I've got Texas by 13.2. My spread based on the last 4 weeks only has Texas by 7 or 7.5, which kind of makes sense when you look at they only put up 17 points against Texas A&M. Now, granted, that one was on the road. They only put up 20 against Arkansas. The offense has not exactly been clicking. Curious if we're going to see some more of Arch Manning now that we're into the playoffs. Just a guess on that because Quinn Ewers, they were able to move between the 30s all day, just back and forth against Georgia. And they got into the red zone and weren't able to do a whole lot. Now, Clemson, like if Texas really does have a running game, which they certainly did not against Georgia, but they have against everybody else. The Wisner kid is good. He certainly was not against Georgia. But Clemson's defensive line, I don't think is comparable to Georgia. So I think Texas could have some success. Clemson is number 77 in PPA allowed per rush. On the other side of the ball, like this Clemson offense is good. Man, outside of playing Georgia in that first game, I don't think they've seen anything like what they're going to see with this Texas front. SMU was able to shut them down in the second half. I think Texas kind of dog walks this, but we'll see. I mean, Texas has not shown up in some of these games. I lean over the 12 here, over anything that's under 2 touchdowns. I kind of feel good about, because I mean, like I said, I've got it 13.2. I think Texas kind of finds themselves in the next few weeks, and I think they'll be ready for this one.
I 100% agree with you. And I brought up the total here. The reason I brought up the total, and it's at a solid 52 here, it looks like, I expect Texas to do that on their own. Texas, I think, is going to be really, really upset. They're going to be at home. And Texas, the way they play football is they do not let up. If you're an inferior opponent to them, they never take the foot off the gas. I'm not going to be stunned to see Texas try to hang as many points as they can. I think the over is the play in this game. I think Texas wins this. 8.5 doesn't scare me. I got to tell you, 13.5 wouldn't scare me on this one. I think
anything
Texas
under 2 touchdowns for sure.
Yeah, at 14, right? At 14, I want to talk. But at
and
13
this total of 52. I'd kind of lean over that. So my number on this is actually 58. So I'm seeing quite a bit. And the reason behind that is Clemson actually does use a little bit of pace with Garrett Riley's offense. I've got them number 12 in the country in offensive plays per game. I've got Texas at number 17 in plays per game on offense. So both of them do like to move with a little bit of tempo, and that's the one thing that Texas was able to do once they got some tempo on Georgia. Kirby had to start calling some timeouts in that second half in what looked like weird spots, but when you realize that it's because they're completing quick passes and they're able to get down the field, they were getting tempo on Georgia's defense, and Georgia couldn't sub, and it was a whole thing. So yeah, I think the over is probably the direction that I would lean up until you get to about 55, and then I started thinking about it.
Yeah, okay. We're completely in agreement on this one. Maybe we can argue on the last game. And this very well may be the best of the whole group. Tennessee going on the road and taking on Ohio State. Looks like everybody kind of likes a 7.5. Gary, what do your numbers look like?
Well, before I jump into this, you tell me, do you agree with this line moving up to 7.5?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Now here's the thing. My number certainly says to take Ohio State here. I've got Ohio State by almost 12 points. My spread based on the last 4 weeks of stats has got Tennessee -9, which is bananas to me. But
yeah, me too.
I mean, it's high variance. You're looking at, again, we've talked about this every week. It's a very small sample size, so there's going to be a lot of variance. But this Ohio State team just last week got booed off of their own field by their own fans. I am so curious where their head is. Now, you start looking at numbers, advanced stats and whatnot. Number 1 in predicted points added margin in the entire country. Tennessee is number 14. Ohio State is number 5 in offensive success rate. Tennessee number 17. This Tennessee defense is as good, if not better, than what Michigan does. But I don't think Ohio State has that mental hurdle that they had with Michigan. I think they're going to be perfectly fine here. And I think they would like to get back to that Oregon game. Now, you hope that they're not looking ahead to Oregon, obviously. But I kind of lean over that 7. So I think I would go Ohio State here, especially a night game at home. They've been begging for a night game because they've been so pissed off about having these noon games. But yeah, I think Ohio State is the direction. Now tell me why you think that Tennessee is the way that you would lean.
I love the hook in this one. When it went to 7.5, I'm all over Tennessee. I think Ohio State could very well win this ball game by 3, by 4, by 7, not 7.5. I don't see it. I don't see it. Again, I'm not predicting an upset here, but if you forced me to pick an upset, I'm taking Tennessee in that list too. It's the most likely upset of these 4, and the hook is just huge in this football game. I just don't see it. I don't see Ohio State putting these guys away.
Tennessee, so their 2 losses this year were both on the road. They put up 17 at Georgia, did not score in the second half. They put up 14 on Arkansas, and I believe they put up both of those touchdowns early in the third quarter and then got shut down again. So you start diving through some of their total offensive numbers. And let's look at their game log here. They played at Oklahoma, only had 4.73 yards per play. They played at Arkansas, only 5.11 yards per play. Then against Georgia, 4.35. So those were their, and against Florida, they only put up 4.52. So there were certainly spots where they just did not look very good. Didn't look good against Mississippi State either, but Nico didn't play in that second half. It was what it was. They seem to get right against Vanderbilt. What I'm curious about is if they can run the ball, they will have a real shot to pull the upset. Because if they can run the ball, you can draw those safeties up. Nico will have open spots in that secondary. Because you've seen it with Ohio State all season long. When teams can run on them, they've got open spots. Mm-hmm. But if Ohio State can shut down the run, then it becomes a problem. You can't pass on it. Tennessee wouldn't have those big plays in order to run their tempo, and they get all out of sorts. I think game state's going to be huge here. If Tennessee can get rolling early, then they certainly have a good shot. If they don't, if Ohio State's able to take them out of their game very, very early in this one, I think this could kind of get ugly. So I think watching that first quarter, this could be a fun game to bet live, I think.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I just don't see Ohio State running away with this. I think it's very possible that they win this by 3 or 4. Would not shock me at all. It's just 7.5 is just way too many. The guy who invented the point spread, he's a genius, and he's what makes all these games fun. So this is where a situation where even if Ohio State was up by 14 in the fourth quarter, you and I are still going to watch because you never know. Tennessee could come back and score a touchdown and that hook kill everybody. So again, I like Tennessee in this spot. Maybe not to win, but definitely to cover. So this is the only game we really disagreed on. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm telling you, we've done a show every week of this football season, and we are starting to think a lot alike, my friend.
You know what? I think it's because I'm getting smarter. I'm
Maybe
finally listening. I'm finally learning from you. So that's good news for me. But hey, I've had a tremendous time the whole season, getting to talk to you every week. It's been a pure pleasure for me. I'd like to apologize about Nebraska's second half of the season. I fully expected it to go much better, for you to get the respect that Nebraska had in the late 90s. We had a really big problem in Nebraska here, just a few days ago with us losing the defensive coordinator. Really concerned about that. And there's been some more announcements. He's taken multiple coaches. I think last I heard 3 of them. So, and I have the alerts on my phone. I've gotten an alert, I think, every day that another guy just entered the transfer folder.
What do you think of the offensive coordinator? What do you think of Holgorsen coming in?
I don't know a whole lot about him. I mean, I remember he was a coach at West Virginia. I don't know. His hand, Matt Rule's hand was kind of forced. I believe that Dylan was going to transfer if he didn't get his way. And that's kind of the world we're living in now. We're really watching professional football on Saturday and Sunday. Just some of these guys are in college when they're playing professional football. I mean, we're talking about quarterbacks getting $1 million now in NIL.
Oh, some of them more than that.
Yeah. Didn't the Michigan guy get 1.8 or something? Something crazy.
The number was what? You talking about the Underwood kid? The recruit?
I think yeah.
The number that was floated out there was 12 million over 4 years.
Oh, I didn't hear that one. I heard 1.8. Okay. See, it just gets more insane every single day. So the question is, can you afford to field the team? I don't know.
I mean, some can't. And that's why culture is so important with football nowadays. Like, it's the teams that are in the playoff, the teams that you're seeing actually win important games. It's teams that have built a good culture, and it's teams that are willing to do whatever it takes to win, not focused on getting a paycheck, right? And so it'll change because everybody's going to be getting a paycheck here pretty soon once this House case gets done. But it's a different world. It's certainly a different world.
It's definitely a different world. The problem is, and we guys have to admit this, they've been getting paid for a long time. It's just we're just now hearing the amounts. So I guess that's the only part that's kind of freaking us out a little bit. Again, I didn't hear the 12 million. I heard the 1.8. So the 12 million doesn't freak me out that much more than 1.8. So when you really think about it,
I think the number that I heard was LSU was not willing to go above 5. Michigan had come to him with 10, and he still wanted to go down to LSU because he had a good relationship with the offensive coordinator down there. But they came back to him with 12, and he's from Michigan, so he couldn't turn it down. I can understand not passing up $12 million. Like, I get it.
Yeah, I agree too. It's just a crazy world. But I got to tell you, when the season started, I hated all of the new conferences. I hated all of the movement. I want Nebraska to play Kansas. I want Nebraska to play Oklahoma. But I got to tell you, I'm dead wrong. These new super conferences are incredible. Look what happened to the Big Ten. Oregon won the Big Ten. Look what happened to the Big 12. Arizona State wins the Big 12. Now, SMU, well, we could probably argue about this, could have won that conference. It's just a crazy, crazy world we're living in. And with this NIL money, maybe there's not going to be all these teams next year, or maybe they're going to have to do something different because not everybody's going to be able to play. This is kind of the problem with Major League Baseball. Kansas City and Pittsburgh are never going to compete with LA and New York.
Nope, but they can for one season if
for
everything
what,
gels correctly. Yep.
But everything has to go their way.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just not realistic in the long run. So we'll have to see how this NIL ends up turning it out. I also hate the transfer portal, but I still want those guys to get what they deserve. So
Well, yeah.
I'm kind of stuck on that one too. I don't know. I'm a contradiction on this whole college football.
Oh, I feel the same way.
I love it so much. I want to be careful not to change everything.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. By the way, so the number thing on Underwood, that's all rumor. I don't know
Right.
that for a fact, obviously, but
No,
just putting it
right.
out there that's the rumor that has been going around that it was like $12 million. It's absolutely crazy, and it could be filled with incentives and all sorts of other stuff. So there's no telling, but he ain't the only one. I mean,
No.
it's this thing is bananas. So I don't know what to think of any of it, but I do know that if you get the right mesh of kids like Tim Albin at Ohio, and he just took the Charlotte job, but he's one of those guys that built a good culture, and it almost didn't matter who he brought in. And that's maybe not giving enough credit to the kids, but Ohio wins the MAC this year. They lost like 6 starters out, like after they got done with spring ball. Like you can never tell how this stuff's going to go. But if everything gels exactly right for one season, do we really expect Indiana to be able to get back to the playoff again next year?
No.
Probably not.
No.
But for this year was fantastic. I mean, what a story. What a story.
It's a great story. Absolute great story. And this is why we love the sport.
You got that right.
I am really anxious to run the Sims this week, see how these games play out. The Sims did not do that well this last week because they had Texas stomping Georgia, and they had Penn State beating Oregon. No. Oregon won that ball game. There was a different ball game they had wrong. I lost it.
I was terrible this week. I did not expect the results that we got whatsoever.
Yeah, I didn't do as well this week as I had projected either. My ROI was not that impressive this week. But you know what? I loved it anyway, and hopefully I can catch up a little bit today with the NFL. But I think we've had another great show. Can't wait to talk with you next week. Gary, how do they find you on Twitter, or talk about any of your shows?
The usual spot at Gary WCE on X. That is the easiest spot to find everything. But the BetUS College Football Show is every Tuesday and Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And that's for the next 2 weeks. Now, we decided that we're not going to do a show on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And we're not going to do a show on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So we're going to do Monday during those weeks. But yeah, I mean, we're going to be doing our normal stuff. We're breaking down every single bowl game, every single playoff game, probably a couple of times because there's going to be plenty of time in between games. So, yes, we'll be doing all of the normal stuff. And then once the season's over, we continue on. But, yeah, that's the BetUS College Football Show. And then my show is Winning Cures Everything. And you find that at winningcureseverything.com.
Oh, I got to ask you, what bowl is Nebraska getting?
Nebraska is in the – man, I wrote this down. Hold on.
I saw the projection, and I hated it.
Let's see. No, it's official. They're playing – crap. Hold on. I've got it right here.
Are you talking about the one in the Bronx, the pinstripe?
Yeah, I think they're in the pin. Yeah.
That's
yep. Yankee Stadium. They are in the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl against Boston College. So you get to deal with Bill O'Brien, my friend.
I don't think that's the problem. I think it's the weather. But okay,
it's gonna be cold. It's in the morning. It's 12 noon. 12 noon Eastern on ABC.
They're still happy to be going, but not as happy as they'd hope to be in the warm weather. But okay. Well, of course, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Vegas Horse Pools. If you have any questions about Spank Odds, let me show you one thing real quick here about Spank Odds that maybe you hadn't seen before. Spanky has made a video of just about everything. If you go into that help menu and you go down to the help videos, Spanky has recorded a video about just about anything you can think of. So if you have any questions there that are not answered, I'd be happy to help you with those. Again, my the Twitter handle to reach me at Spank Odds is at Spank Odds. And I think that'll be it for this week. Gary, it was another great week for us. Can't wait to talk to you next week.
Absolutely, my friend.